Welcome back. This is News File, and here is Samson's Take. And today on my take, actually, my plan was to share some bits of insights with you on this book, the Ajete Anan, A Story of Faith, Imperfection, and Resilience. I had placed my order from the Book Nook store before the launch, and once it got delivered, I started enjoying it in the same manner as I did with the I Am Not Yvonne Nelson. But this morning, I'll just urge you to get your copy, just the same way you got Yvonne Nelson's. Get your copy. Ajete Anan shares very compelling stories, lessons for particularly the young ones coming up, to know the pitfalls and to avoid them. So it's Ajete Anan, A Story of Faith, Imperfection, and Resilience. It's a compelling read, I tell you. Right, but I decided, for a compelling reason, to talk to you, or to share with you, rather, about the sacked PPA boss's corruption story. And actually, that's how I have titled it, The Sacked PPA Boss Corruption Story. You remember the story about Ejenim Boateng Ejay, correct? In 2019, in August, Manasseh Azorah-Winnie did an investigative story and produced a documentary titled Contracts for Sale. And it was found, among others, that a lot had gone wrong. Well, among others, the allegations against the man were that he had set up, right after assuming office, he had set up these companies. So there was this Talent Discovery Limited, TDL, a company established by Ejenim Boateng Ejay in June 2017, a few months after he was appointed CEO of the PPA. That company was awarded contracts from ministries, departments, and agencies through single source, that is restricted tendering. Again, he was found to be a majority shareholder, 60%, and director of that company, with his brother-in-law, Francis Ahen, owning 40% of the shares. It was found that the TDL sells the contracts awarded to it by the MDAs and other public procurement entities. Suppliers and contractors interested in buying those contracts from the TDL had to register with the TDL by paying a non-refundable fee of $5,000. The TDL uses links at the top to win the contracts. Then he was also found to use information he acquires in his privileged position as a CEO of the PPA, as a Public Procurement Authority, to the advantage of this company he has set up just a few months after he got the job. And again, that his role as CEO of the PPA and shareholder and director of the TDL and other companies placed him in a conflict of interest situation. So Shraj went into the matter because the president, through his executive secretary, Nana Bedietio, had first of all interdicted him, but subsequently he was sacked, as you remember. And then they forwarded a complaint to Shraj. Shraj sat on the matter and came to the conclusion that he was guilty, and so found him as such. There was also another complaint filed by the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Shraj again found in a similar fashion that he was guilty of all that he had been accused of, and in fact went into his bank accounts. And as we understood at the time, this was a man whose private bank account held only about 40,000 Ghana cedis at the time of his appointment. But by the time that Manasseh had done this investigation and he was found, he had made in excess of 45 million Ghana cedis in the 3 years using his office as chief executive of the Public Procurement Authority. So that was the estimate if you put all the monies that the Shraj together with the Office of Special Prosecutor had found. So he embarked on, if you like, a crusade through the courts to say that certain things were done wrong during Shraj's processes and that he was not giving a fair hearing. More importantly, that Shraj, first he argued that there was no complainant in the president's petition, and Shraj found that there was a complainant. It was the president. He did it through Nana Asante too, and that Shraj had called certain witnesses, about 17 or so of them, and that he was not giving the opportunity to cross-examine them. Therefore, his rights has been breached. So the court should throw away what Shraj had done. Now, as you are aware, this week there's a judgment of the court that is circulating, and that judgment clearly shows you that there is a judgment dated the 8th of June 2023 before Her Ladyship Justice Audrey Kokovite in the general jurisdiction of the High Court. And that judgment found that, I'll just read the concluding portion here, and then I'll make a quick, inference, and then we'll end. The judge said that, the court said that in the instant case, the applicant herein at all material times denies the allegations made against him. It was therefore incumbent on the respondent, that is Shraj, to give the applicant the right to face his accusers as outlined in its regulations. There is no dispute that before coming out with their decisions, the Shraj interviewed certain people. Those interviews, in my opinion, assisted Shraj to arrive at their decision as contained in a certain exhibit. That's their decision. In this light, Ejenim Boateng should have been afforded the right to cross-examine those witnesses to ascertain the veracity of the information given to Shraj, which formed the basis of its ruling. Failure to give Ejenim Boateng the chance to cross-examine the witnesses is therefore a breach of the principle of natural justice, particularly the auditorum partem rule. On the foregoing, the judge held that the decision of Shraj in respect of the petition or the complaint by Ghana Integrity Initiative had been quashed, so it had been thrown away because they breached his right. Now, what you don't hear about is this other judgment, which is dated the 21st day of January 2022, also in the High Court by Her Ladyship Justice Elfreda Amid Denchi. And in this one, the same arguments were made, but the court held that Shraj was an investigative body and that he was not denied the opportunity, a fair hearing. And that as an investigative body, Shraj can call people and speak to them, and you don't need to have the opportunity to cross-examine them, so to speak. So two decisions of the court, contrasting, if you like. In that case, the judge ended by saying, analyzing the facts of the case and applying the relevant laws and cases stated, this court is of the opinion that there has been no breach of natural justice and certiorari does not arise. The application for certiorari is hereby dismissed. So, this matter was appealed in the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal once again upheld this High Court judge's decision. So, as we understand, it is the case that Shraj intends to appeal this new High Court decision in the Court of Appeal and hoping that it will overturn that one as well. So what is going on? It's interesting. I just end my take on this note, just to give you the two different pictures. And this was a matter in which, when the investigations had been done, a man who is now seeking to become president of the country gave his platform to the PPA boss who had been sacked to vilify the journalists and have a journalist sitting on that platform claiming to be journalists, also vilifying the journalist in the face of all the evidence. That will be my take. Corruption is not easy to fight. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters that we are canvassing for you this morning.
For decades, we have helped businesses connect with their trade partners all over the globe.
Oh, Charlie, close the window small. Your room be too bright, oh.
Why, you be vampire where they like sunlight?
Oh, my guy, my eyes. Behind the PC problem, in the sun problem, common light bulb stuff.
This no matter. I beg go Robert and Sons. Oh, yeah. Then my chick to him, I know correct. Cry. Where Robert and Sons sort them out sharp. Now, so stylish frames in the wrong.
We go Robert and Sons right in. No, I was sitting inside proper.
For over 25 years, Robert & Sons continues to provide specialist eye care for both adults and children. Locate us at Adabraka, Adenta, Kumasi, Usudankwa, Tema, Weja, and East Legon. Call 050-151-9111. Robert & Sons, seeing is believing.
My way insurance, Bamobia, send my way,
Hi, my name is Nanama McBrown, and I want to encourage you to dial *165# on MTN to join the My Way family. My Way provides you and a selected family member a cover against death. As a policyholder, you will also have a cover against total permanent disability and hospitalization should you be hospitalized for more than 2 nights. Dial *165# and join the family. Sanya My Way. No way.
My Way is a product of My Life and MTN Momo. Terms and conditions apply.
And until Vicdan Healthcare, Yabase, alternative way so so
over Vicdanka, it was serene environment with ultra modern facilities. As I share your track, there was Spinters, Coca-Cola runabout, close to Fidelity Bank, Stanchart Ichironuma.
No way pass the Tiapan of declaring party, and Emwa, and then no. With them, they are dear Sue, Fatcher. As I can introduce you DBS Lifestyle Guest Trust, Emma. They say, baby, I say, Yamma, minimum time, the day. ɛyɛ nua yɛ di wu dance ɛno kro na sɛ ne nua bɛ nyinaa ɛnyɛ papa saa DBS license gate trust yɛ de computer na generate nti ɛnade no gu so ɛyɛ straight ana fi sɛ ɛyɛ nade nti emu ntumi nyɛ de ɛnwe ɛgu dance so a afebɔɔ finito mo musisi asodan mo musisi factories and as a dark is bia no me recommend DBS trust amamo DBS trust finito.
My name is Tina. I am a person living with HIV. I got to know my HIV status after I gave birth and lost the child because of HIV. In those days, prevention of mother-to-child transmission services had low patronage due to fear and stigmatization. Today, many HIV-positive women have delivered negative children. I follow the guidelines and take my HIV medicine called ARVs every day, as prescribed by my doctor. This makes me strong and healthy, and also prevent me from passing HIV onto any future child. Please, avail yourself for PMTCT services when pregnant. It is the only way to ensure you do not pass the HIV onto your baby during birth or pregnancy. If you have tested for HIV recently and it was negative, test again when pregnant. If you have tested positive, go to the hospital after birth as directed by your healthcare provider. Your baby will be given medicine immediately and tested to ensure baby and mother are well. Let us work together to have an HIV-free generation.
Our children must be free to shine.
You are your own person, unique, one of a kind, special. That's why you deserve everything tailored to suit your particular taste, your preference, your needs. Just like MTN Just For You. You can get customized offers tailored to who you are. Dial *141# or use the MyMTN app to get to choose from a variety of offers made just for you.
Joy News, your most credible news source, is available on digital TV, Multi TV, DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, and also streaming on myjoyonline.com.
Everyone.
You're welcome. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Before we get to the big issues that we have put together to discuss for you this morning, let me quickly bring this important announcement to you from the GRA, the Ghana Revenue Authority. Payment of property rates bills. Remember, we have spoken to it about it here before and educated you on how to go about it. If you are paying and you are not paying through the right channel electronically, you are doing zero work. The Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, in collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, informs the general public that property rate bills for all metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies are available electronically on portal.myassembly.gov.gh. portal.myassembly.gov.gh. Assembly is ASSEMBLY. All ratepayers are advised to log to portal.myassembly.gov.gh with their phone numbers. It's as simple as that. And validate their properties, view bills, and pay electronically. That's the important thing you need to know. You pay electronically using either mobile money, debit and credit cards, bank transfer, and checks. There must be no cash payment whatsoever to anybody. All payments must be made online at portal.myassembly.gov.gh. The general public is further advised that by section, is it 156(1) of Act 936, it prescribes sanctions, which sanctions include the sale of the defaulting property or properties to defray the amount owed. Note that. Ratepayers are therefore advised to make payments only on portal.myassembly.gov.gh, as payments made outside this platform will be billed again. Kindly contact 0302 756 820 or 0549 986 968 for further enquiries. And this is by the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Right, and we're going into the issues now. I've seen your many messages already flooding in over my take. My take is not a subject for discussion, but I get to your surprise. Yes, the same cases were referred to in all authorities, were referred to in the both cases, and yet one wins, one loses, one goes to High Court, Court of Appeal, wins again, and one is still suffering. Anyway, now let me introduce my guest to you, and then we get into the issues that we're discussing. And my guest for the very first segment on the BBC Africa Eye expose, that suggests that this U.S. charity, in the attempt of doing rescue missions for trafficked children, may be engaged in kidnapping children to raise their monies and getting their parents unnecessarily punished and incarcerated for child trafficking when they are not guilty. My guest are Kwache Afre Nyama, his producer, the BBC Africa Eye. Anita Badu is Country Director, International Justice Mission, the IJM, and Bright Appiah, who else? Executive Director, Child Rights International. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning, and welcome to Newsfile.
Thank you, Samson.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Right, so please listen through here. And let me begin by giving you a sneak peek into what the investigators have brought, which the IJM says is incredibly concerning with material inaccuracies. On the voter leak, is it really the case? We have known that for many years now, there's work that's been going on there, particularly since 2015, when the IJM, got into this business there. And we have been praising and celebrating them for rescuing children, who have been trafficked, and giving them the opportunity, to live their childhood in a beautiful way. And suddenly, we are being told by this documentary, which finds out that there is targeting. People are giving targets. Go and catch a number of children and bring them. Otherwise, you will lose your job. Take a look or listen to this sneak peek.
There's a lot perhaps you may want to say, but I just want to ask you a few questions. Are you okay to help me with that? Can you tell me how you felt when you were taken away from your grandparents? While you were away, what were you thinking? We asked Fatima about her time in the shelter. Fatima was in the shelter for about 4 months. Once she returned home, she discovered her grandfather had died.
IGM plans to rescue millions of people around the world by the end of the decade.
With this in mind, I asked our undercover journalists still working in accounts to find out how they plan to meet these global targets. She took the opportunity in her lunch break.
As a targets, they are always set from the top. Even in organization, talk in one organization, if a target will be set, it will come from well. Then based on that, all the departments we are looking at rescuing number of victims. This number of suspects should be arrested. We would say apart what we think we can do. Start. So that one, sometimes you also considered, you are considered and all that. Okay, out of this number for Ghana, this is how much we think we can do. But every time you have to push yourself and set a higher target. We are committing resources, so we can't commit a lot of resources for you to rescue just 10 children in a year. So the targets will be set, you just have to push yourself and achieve them.
According to this IGM staff member, IGM is clearly target-driven, with teams expected to meet set numbers of rescues and arrests.
Could this focus on targets have made their staff less careful in gathering the facts with Operation Hilltop? As we were looking for more evidence, we unearthed another suspicious case from 4 years ago.
To learn more, I'm on my way to meet a family.
They also seem to have been separated as a result of IGM's activities. My undercover colleague first heard the story during a lunch break.
We have changed the names of the children involved. IGM staffers recounted how a boy, who we are calling James, was taken from the family home in the middle of the night.
At 2 a.m. was going on the lake to so if not for the timely arrival, they would have missed the child. And they took the child, arrested the boatmaster, and arrested his mother, because his mother sold him to the boatmaster.
Was his mother in the area?
He was sleeping in his mother's room.
Oh.
James was taken into care. His mother was held in custody, leaving Adam, a younger sibling, all alone.
Did undercover. He didn't know that he had a sibling, and he wasn't the target. He was the target. If you have sat in the pre-operational planning before, go in, grab it, and come back. Then be sufficient, because else you could be attacked.
Right, so that's just a small bit of what the BBC Africa Eye expose tells. Kwacha Freniama, let's start with you. You are producer, BBC Africa Eye. So from this documentary, the story you are seeking to tell the world essentially is that there are children who are not trafficked, but who are picked up by IJM. And for what reason? And that also their parents are prosecuted and some are put in jail when in fact they are not, found to have trafficked children. But in this process, the IJM works with the Department of Social Welfare, they work with the police as well, and when a matter goes to court, it is before a judge. What do you say?
Thank you very much, Samson. So this investigation focused on 3 rescue missions by IJM. We focused on what IJM called Operation Hilltop, which was in September 2022, just last year. There is also Operation Freedom, which was on the 24th of October 2019, and also an operation that happened in 2017, April, in the Pala Islands and surrounding areas. Now, to respond to your question, let me place the key findings in perspective. For example, in the September 2022 operation in Moina, which is Operation Hilltop, this Moina is a village in the Napali area in the northern region. 4 kids were removed or separated from their families. This was an IJM supported operation. And prior to this operation, the IJM had written, for example, to the Department of Social Welfare, indicating that they had come by the information or intelligence, together with the police service, that these are 4 cases of child trafficking. What we identify, and as we indicate in the documentary, is that with the undercover footage, we were able to identify that indeed prior to this operation, IJM knew that 3 of the cases did not fit or did not match the trafficking category. Yet, they wrote to the Department of Social Welfare indicating to them that these were 4 cases of child trafficking. Now, this is what happened. Subsequently, and indeed in this operation, if you listen to what the documentary, listen to the grandmother of 2 of the children, she said when the IJM supported team came in this midnight operation, they pointed a gun to her throat. They did not tell her who they were, why they were there. They held Fatima, the young girl you see my colleague Chen Shahine speaking to. They held her by the hands and the legs and took her away, took all the 4 children away. In the course of this exercise, this rescue mission, as IJM terms it as well, 2 uncles of these kids faced prosecution. Now, bear in mind that this is all based on information that IJM had provided to its collaborating agencies. In this case, for example, the Department of Social Welfare. The 2 uncles said they spent about 1,500 cedis each time, spent almost all their savings coming to court in Accra each time. The case was eventually abandoned by the prosecution, suggesting lack of evidence. Again, the family indicates that this was a very traumatic experience for them. In fact, what the residents of Mohina tell us is that as a result of this rescue operation by IJM, now a lot of the kids in the town are reluctant to go to school because of the Rambo style in which this occurred. The understanding also is that the chief of the village died out of shock after 2 of his grandchildren were taken away. Again, let me focus on Operation Freedom, which was in October 2019. The woman at the center of this conversation here is a trader, Amlade, mother of two, breadwinner of her family, and how she was feeding her family was, through her trade. And she was, some time later, involved in an accident that left her partially paralyzed. As a result, she couldn't work. So one of her children was working with a fisherman, and she tells BBC Africa Eye that in a week, at most, they were making, the child was making 30 Ghana cedis, and that's how they were feeding. And indeed, she indicates that when the IGM supported team came and embarked on this Operation Freedom, she tried to explain to them, but they wouldn't listen. Now, Amlade was eventually prosecuted, sentenced to 5 years in prison. She spent 2 years of that time. And this is where it gets interesting, as we evidence in the documentary. A partner organization of IGM called Sudro Global Justice Institute managed to get Amlade out of jail. This was after serving half a sentence. And this is what they wrote on their their Instagram page after Amlade had been released from jail. And these are, I'm quoting here, They say, a mother of two, falsely convicted of a serious crime, held in prison for 2 years without access to a lawyer. It did not only affect her, but it had an effect on her community at large. End of quote. Now,
falsely accused.
Yes, this is a partner, and as I was saying, this is a partner organization of IGM, and I'll come back to establish how closely they work with the IGM. And again, a mother of two, falsely convicted of a serious crime, held in prison for 2 years without access to a lawyer. And she said she had no access to a lawyer, and this partner organization, Studio Global Justice, continued in that social media post that this incident did not only affect Amlade, but it had an effect on her community at large.
All right.
Now, subsequently, we identified that the West African director of Sudro Global Justice Institute, Alan Collier, soon after the arrest and conviction of Amlade, was using or operating from the offices of IGM in Ghana. Again, he was using a SIM card registered in the name of IGM's former country director, Will Lathrop. So this is what if you watch the documentary, this is how events unfolded. The IGM supported rescue mission led Amlade to prison. A partner organization of IGM, which works closely with this charity in Ghana, to the extent that the West African director was using a SIM card given to him by Will Lathrop. It registered to Will Lathrop and was using their offices in Accra. Accra later comes to say that she was falsely convicted. She had already spent half the sentence in half of that 5-year sentence. And the other interesting bit is that after this particular, in this particular social media post by Sudro Global Justice, they did not only say that that conviction was wrong, at the end of it all, they used the Amlade case to solicit for funds, if you get what I mean.
I do.
And so this in fine, the findings of this investigation seek to indicate, back with evidence, that there's a certain target-driven culture at IGM. If you look at the undercover footage, you hear staff of IGM indicate that their continuous stay in the organization is tied to the ability to make a certain number of rescues every year. You heard the staff saying that you cannot go for so much money from donors and at the end of the day go and rescue just 10 children. They indicate further that you could lose your job if you don't meet.
Yeah, so what's your point to my question? Your point to my question will be that, as I get from you, that it is the IJM that, gathers the information, feeds the police with the information. So if they have to go and make the arrest, like they say, go just grab the child and run away quick because you may be attacked. And if they go on these missions, they are working with government organizations. You are saying that they misinform them and they also don't do their homework before they collaborate with them to, achieve the results in this mission?
The point here is that something IGM, as we've evidenced in the documentary, provided unreliable and inconsistent information to, in the case of the Moina rescue mission, for example, that led to children being removed from their families, people being prosecuted, and this is all based on the information that IGM provided. And this is how it works.
Okay, quickly, give a minute. Say that in a minute.
Yeah, this is how it works. So IGM identifies specific cases of child trafficking. They have a team of investigators, and they then provide this information to their collaborating agencies, and that's where the collaboration begins. And then they embark on that rescue. So IGM itself that has a department that is supposed or actually does investigations prior to these rescue missions.
Right. And as you found, could this be, let's say an error or mistake? And I'm not saying that because they have issued a statement where they actually suggest that they are ready to learn, but they suggest that there are material inaccuracies. What did you learn was the total number that they have rescued through this mission of trafficked children in all so far, so that we may be able to give them a certain benefit that if they have rescued, say, 1,000 children, then it is not the case that this is what they do.
All right, so our investigation, I'll be able to speak strictly to what is contained in this investigation. Our investigation, for example, in the operation in Pala in 2017, IGM, this was sort of a mass swoop where over 100 children were picked up by IGM, and out of the over 100, only 20% were identified to be trafficked. That means that 80% were not trafficked. And this was in Pala and the surrounding fishing communities. And this is according to IGM's own data. And also in the exercises conducted in Moina and also in Echiaman from involving Amlade. And this was indeed something subsequent to concerns that have been brought to our attention relative to IGM's operations in Ghana, sources very close to the operations and the activities of IGM in Ghana. So I'm able to speak strictly to these three case studies, indeed.
So what do you in the face of what you just said, what do you make of their response where they say that you need to make a distinction between suspected cases of trafficking and suspected cases of exploitative child labor? So they may go in there to deal with exploitative child labor and not particularly trafficking of children. What do you say to that?
Well, in the Moina example, as I indicated, prior to the operation, IGM was aware that 3 of these cases did not fit the child trafficking category, and so that's clear enough. And you in the Amlade case, for example, after Amlade had been jailed, the legal representative of IGM said it didn't feel like justice.
All right.
And you can place that side by side with what the organization says it stands for: delivering justice to the poor in society.
Right. Let me get to Anita Badu, Country Director, International Justice Mission, That's the IJM. Once again, thanks for making the time to join us. So let's begin with these 4 children. The children, as I have seen some evidence, you wrote to the Department of Social Welfare on the 30th of August 2022, and you said, dear sir, request for the provision of social welfare services to rescued victims of human trafficking. That's your headline. Rescued victims of human trafficking. And then in paragraph 2 of your letter, you say, the Northern Regional Command of the Ghana Police Service, with the support of IJM, will be conducting a rescue operation targeted at securing 4 children from forced labor trafficking. Forced labor trafficking in the fishing industry on the Volta Lake in Zabzugu district. This is what they are referring to. Now, you got a reply from the district social welfare, whom you had written to, and they had gone there, spoken to the relatives, spoken to people in the area, as is normally done in social welfare reports, or what in court we call social inquiry reports. Now, they note the first child, a female, 11 years, and they said, this is the status of that girl. Mother, they named the mother. Status, the mother is alive. Father, you name the father. Then you go to the second child. That child, you give age 7. Mother, status alive. Father, status alive. You name them as well. Number 3 is a female, 11 years. Mother, you name the mother. They name the mother and say the mother is deceased. The father, they say the father, they name the father and say the father is alive. And the final child, the last child, is female, 4 years old. They show that they give you the mother's name, the mother is deceased, the father is alive. Now, they make this recommendation after this observation. So I read the observation. The observation says, it has been observed that the 4 children were not trafficked. Those are emphatic words. Were not trafficked into the community, but were sent there as a result of poverty and the death of the biological mother of 2 of the children. It is instructive to know that all the children are not attending school, as at the time of rescue. They were engaged in helping their caregivers to make ends meet. Recommendation by the social welfare. In view of the findings made in the community and the detailed understanding of the victim's situation, coupled with the community reservations on how the 4 children were removed from the community and placed into social care as suspected victims of trafficking, I recommend the 4 children should be sent back to the community for reunification with their respective families. IJM should consider provision of livelihood support to the parents and caregivers to enable them take proper care of the children and enroll them in school in the community. How do you now respond to, what do you now say to your response where you say there is considerable material inaccuracies in the documentary or the report?
Thank you very much for that, Samson, and this opportunity to speak on this issue. I continue to say that there are factual and material inaccuracies in the documentary that was presented. But first of all, let me speak a bit about IGM Ghana and the work that we do. I believe there have been references to 2015. That is when IGM Ghana was established in Ghana. The issue of targeting and addressing child trafficking on the Lake Volta is not one that is new, or it's not one that started in 2015. It's one that goes back many decades. And there have been many agencies, the government and many other agencies have been involved in tackling this. IGM's main approach in seeing that the issue of child trafficking and exploitation, I should highlight, in Ghana and in other abuses across the world, is to support and strengthen our public justice systems in being able to deal with this issue. And that cuts across a broad range of areas. And so there is training and capacity building, there is support and advocacy for resources and logistics, there is community work also being done. And so it's a wide range of areas or targets that we work towards. And so victim rescue or victim relief and restoration is just one out of a broad range of areas that we look at for successful work in this area. When we look at child trafficking, the reason that IGM focuses on that is that by and large, research and survivor experiences have shown that whilst we have child labor, exploitative labor, hazardous labor, forced labor, and trafficking, this is a wide spectrum, and perhaps we might not be able to go into all the detail, but they are very complex issues, and sometimes cannot just be clearly drawn out with a ruler or a line. But these are things that are spelled out, the conditions or the terms are spelled out quite clearly in the Children's Act and the Human Trafficking Act in relation to what constitutes reasonable work or what that a child can engage in. There are very specific guidelines in terms of what is light work, what is hazardous work for a child. And so this notion that there is a team just going in without adequate information or children just sitting around happily without any issues and there being intervention is completely wrong. Secondly, our team works in conjunction with government agencies. And so where information is gotten across from communities, we feel that there is a need for due diligence before passing it, as much as we can do, before passing it on to the police and other government agencies. And so there are inquiries that are made to be able to go a little bit deeper into the case. We can't conduct an independent investigation. We can try and make sure that the information that we are bringing to the police is as accurate as we can. We don't have the legal mandate for that, but we do have a team that tries to go through that information and sift through so that the information that we are bringing to the police is as robust as possible. And any information that is brought to the police and the DSW per their mandate, they also investigate before agreeing to move forward on an operation. And so in this particular case, the police had the information and did their initial inquiries before there was an agreement to move forward. I should also say that there was information about many other children who there had been indication that they're in situations of exploitation or trafficking in that area, that those were not highlighted, those were not gone through because we went through this robust system of narrowing down to those who we felt were most at risk. And yes, there was debate within the team as to what constitutes, which one of the cases comes under trafficking or labor. For me, I believe that is a sign of a healthy culture where people are able to come and say, this is what I think, and this is what the other person thinks. Through that, internally, we have a team of managers. Whenever a field worker or an investigator brings information to the team, it is sat with managers and there are determinations made before even a request is sent to our government agencies. To the letter that was referenced, I do admit that the title could be problematic. However, the detail, all the facts, the initial letter that was sent to DSW had all the facts of the children and the situations that were described in good detail. So no information about the uncertainties were withheld, or that we were very transparent with our government partners to say that this is where our concerns were.
So we need these your specific responses to the two specific curious situations. You say you admit that the framing of the issue in your letter of 30th of August 2022 may be problematic, but the details will show and negate that not all the 4 children were a result of child trafficking or trafficking. However, What will be your answer then to the recommendation by the social welfare, which brought you a report in December of the same year and said these children are not children trafficked? What you need to do is support their parents to get them better taken care of and also to go to school.
So the actual recommendation that was received from let me go back. Let's not forget that there was a 7-year-old boy in this group of children who it was quite clear that he was working on the lake and also farming, and he had been told that this is why you are here, this is your purpose. And I don't think any one of us would deny that that is an issue, that is a problem. He wasn't in school and he was working long hours on the lake. Once that is done, he goes onto the farm. I wouldn't want my 7-year-old to be in that situation.
Nobody would want that to happen to their child.
Exploitation. And so that was the key prompt, where you have that concrete information on one child, but for the others are clear. When it comes to social work assessments, if there are a group of children in one situation, you can't say because I have concrete information on this, I'm going to leave the others. There's a probability that there could be a risk. And so you have to go in there and assess and then make a determination. And so when the DSW determination came, there were recommendations. Even though they were going back to their families, there were specific recommendations as to which family members they would be going to and why that was. And the reason was that they would be safer in those with those other family members, and they would have the opportunity to actually go to school and continue with their well-being and development. And our team provided support through that process. And as we talk about economic empowerment and support, our team works alongside DSW for each case that we are working on to assess the situation of the child protection and child well-being.
So my question again, my question again, and the public would like to know, why didn't you use their recommendations? We know that people may make errors, and you say you are depending on the collaboration of state agencies, including the police. Well, the police is not always correct. Sometimes they make mistakes. It's gone to court. Like I asked Afre, so why did the court also look through and incarcerate these people and so on, the woman particularly, and cause these two men to spend their livelihood fighting a court case and so on? The thing is that the courts will also not always get it right. Sometimes these things happen. But where you have been told by the important partner that these are not trafficked children, this is what to do with them, why do you do otherwise?
I don't believe that we have done otherwise. In each case that we've worked with a DSW, we have what we call reintegration. And so there's a list of where the family may be, where there are gaps, and where support needs to be in. We have provided support to over 300 children to their families, and whether it's charcoal business, whether they want to go to market and do a trade. We have provided support for paying or providing support for children who are going to school. Their stationery they need to get, sewing machines for people girls who want to go into seamstress trading. We have provided support for family, economic empowerment for families. In these two cases that have been highlighted, I'll start off with Amlade. The children did have contact with their mother even when she was incarcerated. There was an assessment done of a family member, and there was support put in place for her for a business, and the children were also supported through their educational needs. And again, with the other case, Hilltop, that was identified, there was support put in place for the family members. Other children were integrated to the family members that had been identified as safe. And so we look at the holistic well-being. In as much as our core mandate is supporting the justice system, we also believe very, very strongly that the well-being of the child is paramount. And when it comes to well-being of the child, the support system and the system of care is also important. And so all that is part of our programming.
Okay.
And so to just take a little part of our programming and overemphasize it and claim that is what is driving all our work.
So you see, Anita, the journalist dealt with facts that you cannot dispute. So why are you still blaming the journalist?
Well, I don't know I don't know that I can say I'm blaming the journalist. I am saying that there are inaccuracies in what is portrayed, or it's not the full picture of the work that goes on.
What is inaccurate about using your own request and the report from the social welfare to point to the glaring facts that they are not trafficked kids?
What is inaccurate is that we cannot independently make a determination to move out and intervene. And that intervention comes through the police processes and through their hierarchy and through their management systems. That is what is inaccurate.
Okay.
The police assess, the police intervene, the police take action. We provide support through the cases.
Okay. So the next curious issue, granted that what you're saying is something we can work with, how come someone gets incarcerated because of your work for trafficking a child, and then a partner organization goes to the rescue of that person who had no lawyer and was jailed because of the information you churned out together with the police and your partners, of course, with the exception of the Department of Social Welfare? We cannot blame them because they gave inaccurate information. Now, I don't know if this was put before the court. Obviously, if it was, they wouldn't be the woman would not be incarcerated. But the curious question now is, how come a partner organization who is found to actually use your office and use a SIM card used by someone who has been head of your institution or an officer of your institution, now goes to the rescue of this woman, gets her out of jail midway, and celebrates that to the world, and also says that the woman was falsely convicted when the conviction was a product of your work, and then uses that to raise funds? How do you respond to that?
Thank you. So in this particular case, I want to also be clear that the case was presented to court and the plea was guilty. And so once a guilty plea has been given, the sentence comes through and goes through. That was done. That is what, let me say, the rule of law or the process of law followed. And within the court system, even though Amlade did not have legal representation, due processes that would need to be followed when one does not have legal representation were followed. However, I think that there is always a human side. We are not robots that are just moving, doing things left, right, and center, regardless of the impact. I think there was a human side, and that was felt with the team. And so this is where the decision was made for a referral. A referral was made to the Sudro Institute for some legal support, because it was felt that there was that emotion that she hadn't had legal support, and that referral was made. Sudro Global Institute is a partner from a global organization, and there was a member of their staff who was based in Ghana. Because of the global relationship, an offer was made for him for an office space within the office. Aside from this case, there is no other collaboration or working together with. Again, because of the human side and the emotion, it was felt that if there is something that this team can do, then the referral was made. But there was no other conversation or collaboration aside from that. Now, what they put on their website or how things flow from that side, I cannot really speak into that.
Okay. You say it's incredibly concerning, but in your statement, you seem to suggest that you want to learn from what has happened. I don't get that sense. I don't get that sense from you as this morning.
We are always a learning organization, and we learn case by case, operation by operation. And so I believe there was reference made about the way operations were done in 2017 or prior to 2017. We've taken a lot of lessons from that, and a lot of dialogue. What we really pride ourselves on is building good relationship with our government partners, and so having dialogue as to what can work better, and together moving forward in that. And so with this, yes, of course, things did not go 100% to plan, or as we would put it, but there are lessons to be learned, and we'll move forward with that. We always look to learn. We always look to grow. Processes were followed.
Do I hear you? Do I hear you admit that something went wrong in this operation?
I would say that on the face of it, there is a sense that there is a human face or human element in terms of feelings, emotions, and sentiments. We had no wrongdoing in terms of the processes and steps. And so what the learning really is in terms of nuance, where these are very unique cases, I must say. We've had over 70 cases that we've worked through and supported with our government agencies. And so there are particular cases where there are nuances and not the same as the standard. And these are the lessons that we want to sit with our government partners to look through these complexities and see how they are dealt with and managed in the future.
Okay. Yes or no? Did you comply with the Social Welfare Department's recommendations?
To support the family.
Their recommendations were that they are not trafficked, return them, support their family. Did you comply with that?
All our work is in collaboration with the DSW. So there was
I wanted a yes or no. Did you comply with it?
Yes, there was support put in place for the family members as the children returned.
Okay, maybe a little understanding before I go to my other guests to speak briefly about this, then you take leave of us. What's the process? When does the report come in what you do? When does the report come in? Is it after you have, picked up these children, and after how long? Or the report comes in before you move in to pick up the children?
So the report of the social inquiry report?
That's correct, the social inquiry report.
No, the social inquiry report is done afterwards. And so after an intervention is made, there is a process of interviewing, sitting with the children, determining more details around their family situation, family histories, and then going on to do further assessments as to what steps need to be taken for their continued well-being.
Okay, so last thing, you don't feel some of your members may be under pressure to get children because you give them targets, and as we heard one of your officers say to the investigator who they managed to get either employed in your organization or somehow, that this may lead to some people doing the wrong thing?
Okay, so I believe that every organization has targets with all the areas of work that they operate in and all their objectives. And so we do have that. No individual person, field worker, has been said, you need to bring in this amount of children or you're fired. That has not been my experience, and I've been here for 8 years. That has not been the experience.
So that your officer was misleading.
I believe that things were taken out of context. However, what I was going on to say is that even though that is not the case directly, there are situations where people may feel that. And that is something that I will be looking into. In my experience, people are driven by the passion to
please tell me that this your officer on the tape was lying, that you don't give targets and people must push themselves to get the targets.
People push themselves because of their passion for children to be protected, not because of a number.
You suggest that she may have been misinterpreted, but we are listening to her say it directly, that you are giving targets and you must get the targets. You are saying something different. How else could we hear her wrongly?
What I am saying is that targets are given in all our work. So targets in all our work that we measure, and we are measuring because we want to see that our work is having impact and there is change happening in this work that we are doing.
Yes, so
if we're doing this work and we are not measuring
back to my question, and I need a direct answer. And it was actually not one officer, as we understand, 3 officers, all saying the same thing, that you are giving them targets and they need to go in, grab, and move. And this could lead people to do wrong things. Were these officers lying?
Again, these statements were taken out of context and out of a broader conversation being had on a lunch table or over a lunch table.
Okay.
And so for the bigger
Thank you very much. I get that. You have said it was taken out of context. So all that we heard, maybe we need to hear more, but we heard a conclusive, categorical statement that this is what it was. Mr. Bright-Appiah, what will you say after having had the benefit of this documentary? From where I sit, it looks like an organization with a good heart that's been doing a lot of good work. We have celebrated them over the years, but it's a human institution, and they have a little difficulty in admitting that something went wrong.
Yes, something. I think that something went wrong somewhere. Looking at the documentary and some of the additions that the lady made in respect to their mode of operations. And when I was watching the documentary, there are three things that came to mind. The first is that whether or not they followed the due process in the work that they did, and whether also they observed that professional standard. Because once you are registered in that sector, then it's expected that your conduct would also be in such a way that will protect the right of children and even the adult. And also whether the best interest of the child was also observed in the process. So for me, if you're able to answer these three questions in terms of how they conduct themselves, then probably we may attribute some of these into administrative error, and then also making sure that it do not happen again. But listening to the lady and then also Fred, I see issues of process that sometimes we take for granted because for you to do a rescue, the Children's Act is clear on what you need to do and the processes that you have to engage to do that. And even to the extent that the legislative instrument to the Children's Act gives you a clear direction as to what needs to be done. So once you follow that process, again, you are conducting yourself in a manner that's supposed to. But I think that for notice, that is where most of NGOs, our work must end. We need to notify the system to take up certain responsibilities. And if you look at the work of IGM, there is a high involvement of the state institutions like the police, social welfare, and they must take the lead in some of these things so that when it comes to prosecution and all that, it's not a matter of IGM leading the process, but it's the state institution leading the process because they've been notified.
It obviously will be the police, not the organization, but they will depend on the information that is given to them. And the courts will also rely on the information that is supplied it.
And that is where my issue is, because what IGM did is to just give the system a notice that this is what is happening at this particular time. Irrespective of the report that they will submit to these institutions, it's not absolute report for them to depend on to do any further work, but rather it is a notice and they have to go in to do further investigation to establish whether indeed the notice served them is right and or it is wrong, so that they can make some recommendation. That is where the social inquiry report is very critical in deciding what you need to do. And whatever recommendation that will be made by a social welfare officer in respect to the social inquiry report, it must be followed strictly. But in most cases, most of the social inquiry report comes after a lot of things has happened to the family. There's a raid, there's all kinds of things. The police has also, you know how the police does their work and all that. So sometimes there's some kind of breach of that process. And for me, we should also look at the work of the police, the work of social welfare in determining the outcome. Because if the documentary is on IGM and they have also engaged all these processes to get certain things done, then we also have to question how the processes were done by these administrative bodies to get these people into jail and all that, and whether or not the interests of children were served. Okay. And I was a bit alarmed that the social welfare officer wrote a social inquiry report, made a recommendation, and we are still not getting answers to whether or not they respected the position of the social welfare inquiry report to be able to do their work. And we will need answers to that. And for the other thing has to do with the professional conduct. As organization, what are the processes that you have to engage to be able to do those rescue, whether or not there's a standard or a policy direction procedures.
So from where you sit, what should be happening from here?
Yeah, where I sit, I think that one, we need to, as organization, we need to respect the position of these institutions, especially where they have made a social inquiry report and made a recommendation that we should follow. Again, we must always, at all material time, observe the best interests of children in matters of this nature to see where the child will be would better serve the child rather than where we keep them and all that. So basically, these are things that for me...
And should this matter end here after the expose, so to speak, and we also discuss it? That's it, end of the story?
Not at all, not at all. There's a lot of things that are in the documentary that, as she said, it must be a learning curve for us. Some of them we think that there's a breach of process, which we have to also follow up.
So who do you think should be doing what? Who do you think should be doing what? The state or who?
That's where the problem is, because now even some of the things done by the police, at the point it was reversed. So there's a whole lot of things that we have to do within that supply chain so that we can get the kind of results that we want at the end of the day. Because a case of that nature cannot go to court for the person to be prosecuted, sent to jail, and later find out that something went wrong. So sometimes the bench must get out of their seat to go into the community to do some analysis. The police must also get out of their seat to do proper investigation. Social welfare must also get out of their seat to do proper investigation before some of these outcomes are determined.
Thank you very much, Bright
And even one thing, even in the documentary, I think that something also went wrong because a child face was shown throughout the documentary. And for me, I think that if BBC can do something about it, they should do that, because
yes, the 11-year-old child, I made that observation as well. Okay, thank you very much, Bright Apia of the Child Rights International. We will, I'm sorry, but we are unable to continue this discussion at this point. We'll end it here. But just to let all of you know, all of us know, that according to our Children's Act, the interest of the child, the welfare of the child is paramount. And that's what we do in this country, according to our laws and even our courts. And therefore, the law requires that anyone, if you have a suspicion that a child is being abused, exploited, harmed, etc., you must report to the Department of Social Welfare. If you talk to the police, they may assist also. And so the institutions that are reported to must also do a good job. I'll take a break. I saw Kofi Bento was there, but you're supposed to be on the second issue and not this one. Kofi, in a minute, what do you want to say on this particular matter? And I realized that, for example, when she says that she went to court and she pleaded guilty, as a lawyer, you sit in court and people come there, they are confused, they don't really know what is happening. And sometimes they plead guilty when they are not. And sometimes after the event, we are able to go back to court and to show that they shouldn't have been pleading guilty. There are some judges who are also very active, who will make sure the issue is framed properly so that you understand before you make your plea. So have you left your child? Has your child gone here, gone to the sea perhaps? And she says yes. I don't know. Is that what the sense you get?
Yeah, I mean, listening, look, there are good and also bad aspects to this story. But like Bright was saying, we need to appreciate that there are rules to this thing. And if you ask me, I'll say somebody should take this case up, study it, and make some of the recommendations. For the activists or organizations that are seeking to rescue children, quote unquote, we know that poverty is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We need to deal with how they operate, because indeed, some of them prey on the negative stories and it's showing up. But then again, these are the same institutions that throw light on the kinds of exploitation that our children are going through, which is not being dealt with by the institutions unless these organizations throw light on them. And then you have the courts, like you said. Why would this person, a poor I can imagine a person who doesn't even understand the process come and plead guilty. They don't know what they're dealing with. And then the judge says that, how should the system handle them? And then when these things have been thrown up, okay, what should be the recourse? I really wish, I would hope that Bright & Co can take this up so that we can mend this kind of arrangement. Because ultimately, there's something to gain from doing it right, and there's something to lose. I would have said, if we could be sure that our institutions should take care of our children, we should drive out all these people who come here supposedly to do us good. But we can't be sure, so we can't drive them out. But if they're also going to be here and profit over the misery of our children, then did we go or did we come? So somebody should get through this, and maybe everybody will be better off in the end.
Well, Kofi, even the state defends its image when issues come up about cocoa growing areas, kids. I can't imagine the 7-year-old on the seas doing what? There was one of them, 4-year-old. I'm looking at my kids and I'm asking myself, how does this happen? So these organizations come, and you can't say they shouldn't be there, because we know the fact that these things go on. This exploitation, child abuse is going on. But some will also say traditionally we are known to have our children as sisters to do one thing or the other, and it should not be deemed as child trafficking and so on.
It's a difficult, situation to deal with, but there is a line beyond which reasonable child labor becomes unreasonable child exploitation and exposing that child to unreasonable danger, diving into the water lake. And the point you are making is very important. It is easy to identify these things. It is easy. So the institutions there, why would you wait for somebody to fly from the US to come and set up an organization here before they come and tell you that somebody is being exploited on the border lake? If they will do their jobs, like I said, we can ask all these people to go away, because we know poverty is a multi-billion industry and people are exploiting it. But here we are. You can't just drive them away.
Thank you very much. We take a break, and when we return, the leak tape, the conversation with certain people. It's difficult, isn't it? Because of legal angles to things. You can hear voices, the voices for a fact. You can bet your bottom dollar that this is the person speaking, and yet you are not, in certain circumstances, allowed to say this is the person talking. And plotting to have the IGP removed, and for whatever reasons. But is this some gossip going on with just some party enthusiasts? And, the opposition is trying to elevate it to say that it's the government that has an agenda to remove the IGP because his conduct will not assist them win elections 2024. There are issues that are also being raised that the IGP he may have done certain things, and his appointment to, not everybody would have been happy about it, and so on. So it's legitimate that these things happen within the organizations. We'll be right back.
Oh, Charlie, close the window small. Your room be too bright, oh.
Why, you be vampire where they like sunlight?
Oh, my guy, my eyes. Behind the PC problem. In the sun problem. Common light bulb stuff.
This no matter. I beg go Robert and Sons. Oh yeah, then my chick to him, I know correct. Where Robert and Sons sort them out sharp. Now so stylish frames in the rock.
We go Robert and Sons right in. No, I was sitting inside proper.
For over 25 years, Robert & Sons continues to provide specialist eye care for both adults and children. Locate us at Adabraka, Adenta, Kumasi, Usudankwa, Tema, Weja, and East Legon. Call 050-151-9111. Robert & Sons, seeing is believing.
My way insurance, Bamobia, sing it my way,
Hi, my name is Nanama McBrown, and I want to encourage you to dial *165# on MTN to join the My Way family. My Way provides you and a selected family member a cover against death. As a policyholder, you will also have a cover against total permanent disability and hospitalization should you be hospitalized for more than 2 nights. Dial *165# and join the family. Sanya My Way. Kasa no way.
Sing it my way.
My Way is a product of My Life and MTN Momo. Terms and conditions apply.
Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Hi, good day. Your friend is Dr. Victor Nana Dankwa because of Big Dank Healthcare. A private and comfort hospital like catch up someone your liver and kidney related conditions. Obi on my fatty liver. Obi on my catching so when you're hydronephrosis. Obi on my catching so when you're pyelonephritis, which is inflammation of the kidneys. Obi on my catching say the kidney so be a big now. Obi on my send the creatinine and I send the JFR. And until you be so how now sit me tatai. I feel don't send me an atom. Johnson now be Johnson, who wants the phone be about training. Kawakuma to him. And until now, Vedan Healthcare, Yabase, yet an alternative way so ever south area.
So over Vedanka, it was serene environment with ultra modern facilities. As I was share your track there was Painters, Coca-Cola Runabout, close to Fidelity Bank, Stanchart Ichironuma.
Day men, strong and refined. The skincare you deserve. Dream.
You are your own person, unique, one of a kind, special. That's why you deserve everything tailored to suit your particular taste, your preference, your needs. Just like MTN just for you. You can get customized offers tailored to who you are. Dial *141# or use the MyMTN app to get to choose from a variety of offers made just for you.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. And those you heard earlier, Kwachi Afreniama, producer BBC Africa, Anita Badu, Country Director, International Justice Mission, that's IJM, Bright Appiah, Executive Director, Child Rights International. You also heard Kofi Bentil, lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa, now joining us for the main agenda for which he joined us. Felix Kwachi Ofosu is special aide, former President Mahama, and NDC parliamentary candidate Bura Asebu Kwaman Kese, and Richard Ahiagwa is Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thanks for your patience. So I'll just get these messages out. Awuni Kofi says this organization should be dissolved. Our system is failing. Frank Boateng, Anita is defending her organization. She will do anything to support her job. Nothing new. Abiam Crow Clement says the woman is not speaking to the specific issues. Kimati Adea says in serious countries, they will close down IJM and put all their workers under investigation, but not in Ghana. We will just talk, nothing happens. Well, as we understand, the U.S. Embassy, also the U.S. Congress, because it's an organization that gets funding from the U.S. In millions of dollars. So they are taking interest. Let's see how it goes. Frank Ejakwa says, so what kind of investigation and due process does the Ghana police, the social services, and the courts do before the so-called accused traffickers are prosecuted? Okay, so thanks for those your messages. Now, this is important, and we need to reiterate that the Ghana Revenue Authority, in collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, informs the general public that that property rate bills for all metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies are available electronically on portal.myassembly.gov.gh. All rates payers are advised to log to portal.myassembly.gov.gh with their phone numbers and validate their properties, view bills, and pay electronically using either mobile money, debit and credit cards, bank transfer, and checks. There must be no cash payment, and that's in caps, bold. No cash payment whatsoever to anybody. All payments must be made online at portal.myassembly.gov.gh. The general public is further advised that at 936 section 1561 prescribed sanctions, which include the sale of the defaulting properties to defray the amount owed. Ratepayers are therefore further advised to make payment only on portal.myassembly.gov.gh, as payments made outside this platform will be billed again. Kindly contact 0302 756 820 or 054 9986 968 for further enquiries. This is by the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Notice has been served. If you don't pay through online, you live to pay once again, and don't blame anybody. Right. So there has been a leaked tape, and that leaked tape has caused Parliament to take a certain decision. Let's go to Parliament quickly and return to my guest in the studio and on Zoom.
The minority insists that a tape exposes a greater risk to the country's democracy. According to Emmanuel Amakufi-Boa, in the least, the Interior Minister must commit to investigate the tape.
When there's a leaked tape, when the leaked tape, there's issues around the leaked tape has to do with the IGP, the sitting IGP, and the attempt to remove him, and the issues about 2024 election, and what must be done to make sure that a new IGP is put in place who will collude with a sitting government to get a certain outcome. That must concern this Parliament. It borders on the security and the stability of our country. And it's very important that the Minister is here, that this House, and I'm happy he's here, that this House wants to know who are those involved, what is the authenticity of that leaked tape. We need to find out, and I think all I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, is that we ask the Minister of State, who is responsible for this sector, to look into the matter.
Some majority MPs have been criticizing their NDC colleagues for seeking to politicize this issue.
Let me state clearly that as Minister for the Interior, it is my duty to make sure that there is peace and security in the country. And therefore, investigating any piece of information, I have no problem with it in principle at all. So to get the impression that an IGP can do something extraordinarily wonderful to assist a party to win election is wrong. If there's a tape I want it to be investigated, I in principle have no problem. But to go ahead and give the impression that a particular IGP presence or not, or whether he's office or not, will determine the outcome of election is wrong.
But the NDC MP say this is too big to let it slide.
And Mr. Speaker, we do so not just for the professional integrity of the IGP, and to preserve and protect him and empower him to ensure that elections in this country, even tomorrow, are conducted in a manner. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you have always taught us that the word free and fair have constitutional meaning. When the Constitution says that elections shall be conducted in a manner which is free. Free from what? Free from fear, free from intimidation, free from influence. It has a meaning. So free and then fair. So, Mr. Speaker, to preserve our democracy and to protect the professional integrity of the Inspector General of Police, and to appreciate what Dan Parry is doing in preserving this, we are requesting for a parliamentary inquiry into this matter.
Police officers involved in a conspiracy to rig the upcoming elections. Mr. Speaker, it should be a matter that should engage the attention of this House. And we're saying that Mr. Speaker makes appropriate directives so that this matter can be gone into and the veracity or otherwise of the audio authenticated. And if it is authenticated, those behind this whole thing should be punished. They should be prosecuted to serve as a deterrent.
Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has ruled that the House will investigate the matter.
There is the need for an investigation, but going by the standing orders, I have to give proper direction as to the nature, the type of investigation.
What is now left is the form and shape that this investigation will take.
Right. Okwasante brought us that report. He's Multimedia's parliamentary correspondent, and this secret audio simply alleges a plot to remove the police chief. You hear talks about frustrations due to the IGP's refusal to align with the ruling party, that the breaking the 8th agenda is impossible with the current police chief, and then concerns raised about democracy and potential election rigging as a result of all of these things in the tape. So let's begin. Felix, is this to be treated as serious as Parliament is being elevated in Parliament?
Oh, of course, it has to. It's a very serious matter. I am fair-minded, so I like to delineate the issues properly. The issue really is not about a senior police officer, or if you like, a rival of the IGP within the police service, jostling to have him replaced. I'm sure there are people enjoying
somebody who has how many months to check out of the place?
Yes, he has a few months.
4 months or
yes.
so.
Yes, I'm sure at Joy FM, there are people who would want to take your place. I'm sure there are people in the MPP who want to replace Richard. So that really is not the problem. The problem is the reasons for wanting to replace the IGP. And if you notice, the senior police officer, and some fingers have pointed to a particular COP, says that it is not really about him. He is willing to sacrifice his ambition for the cause of the MPP. And that if the IGP is replaced and the MPP manages to win the 2024 elections, he will be okay. So the issue for me really is the partisanship that this senior police officer displays in the conversation that he has with the MPP bigwig who was on the other line. That for me is the crux of the matter. Now, this reveals the extent of politicization of the Ghana Police Service. And it is extremely worrying because the police service is in charge of maintaining law and order internally. They are the ones who are responsible for ensuring security and the safety of all parties in elections, as was the case in Asen North and Kumewu recently. So if you have an organization that is politicized to this extent, then even before the election starts, you have a situation where one party has unfair advantage over the other. And I heard Dan Botre say in the insert that you played that an IGP cannot influence the way that elections are conducted. I beg to differ, and I'm surprised that he, as experienced as he is in the political terrain, he will say this. Perhaps he was only trying to, as it were, defend the MPP line. But the point is that if he is the man in charge of security, I mean the IGP, what he does or does not do in the run-up to or during the election is consequential. What happened at Ayo West Wagon? If we had a police service that was determined to ensure that it did not happen, it would not have happened. Because there's no way anybody can tell me that the ragtag team of bandits that came there posing as security operatives, who clearly were armed by the MPP, could have taken on the entire might of the Ghana Police Service if they were intended to stop them from doing so. If you have a determined IGP who wants to enforce the law, as was the case in Asin North, it will happen. Indeed, I'm sure you heard about a few reports of misconduct on the part of some thugs. But the policing arrangements were such that they were able to snuff out any danger that occurred in Asin North. That is the kind of situation you will have if you have a professional police service that is dedicated to maintaining law and order, irrespective of whose ox is God. So when Damboche says that the IGP cannot influence the conduct of an election, it is not true at all. And it points to a certain laxity, on the part of the government and the MPP to want this matter investigated. I was a bit surprised at the flippancy with which the Interior Minister dismissed this claim. He says that the IGP is going nowhere, so for him, the case is closed. That should not be the case. For the avoidance of doubt, it is important that there is some harmony in the leadership of the Ghana Police Service. The last thing you want are contestations that have the tendency to tear apart the service. So if you have high-ranking senior officials who have such a partisan mindset going at the head of the organization, the IGP, in a manner that suggests that they would have been removed if they had their way, the Interior Minister cannot sleep over it. It is extremely important that those who are appointed to certain positions in public organizations like the police service exhibit professionalism. This level of partisanship is intolerable, and that senior police officer has no business remaining in office. Indeed, he has made his continuous stay in the Ghana Police Service untenable, because you cannot have this sort of mindset. How are we, members of the NDC, expected to deal with him if he happens to be in charge of anything that remotely resembles electoral efforts? How is the general public supposed to view? Indeed, how are his subordinates going to view him going forward? I'm sure they may know where he stands politically, but the overt expression of it in the manner that he did in this tape significantly undermines his status in the eyes of all those who have to work under him. How is he going to relate with his colleagues? How indeed is he going to relate to the IGP? Can he look the IGP in the face going forward after this thing has become public? So it's a serious national security matter. And the sort of laxity we are seeing on the part of government is not acceptable. And again, it is in keeping with the conduct of this government. You see, to the extent that anything is in their favor, they do not care. And Samson, it is important to the extent that it also highlights the politicization and weakening of state institutions that we in the NDC have been hammering upon. Look, the police service, the judiciary, the electoral commission, otherwise independent state organizations, all of them have come under a certain level of attack under this government. And it is coming together in a way that has completely eroded the confidence that people have in these institutions. If you have a police service that is politicized, you have an electoral commission to which rabid MPP fanatics have been appointed to. If you have,
that's the point.
Yes,
that's the point.
Yeah,
presidents do not appoint, like we have heard, their enemies into these offices when the power is with them to appoint. You disagree with Damboche because what? Police IGPs have influenced elections before. You disagree with him because what? Police IGPs don't they is it lobby for these jobs? No. And does it not show always that they must belong to a party? No, a party must be comfortable with them before they are appointed.
Unlike, I'm sure even in your private organization.
This may have played out in the public.
Something.
But is that not the secret, the obvious thing?
Something. Even here at Multimedia, I'm sure that there are minimum standards that are required of you when you are appointed to a certain position. You are expected to conduct yourself in a certain manner. Professionalism is the key. In a public organization, you are working on behalf of the state, not a political organization. So anybody who occupies a certain position must exhibit a certain level of professionalism and conduct. Otherwise, it's not fit for that office. I beg your pardon. And then there are institutions that are supposed to be independent. You see, their independence is not a fluke. Some of them are even constitutional. They are required to be independent. What does that independent mean? Why are they required to be independent? Because they play roles. They play roles that ensure that they do things that must be acceptable.
The IGP's office
to the larger.
The IGP's office is not independent.
No.
In fact, there has been some advocacy earlier, particularly by Dr. ACP Agbojo, that there should be the police IGP must be appointed through an independent process.
Yes.
We are not there. It is the president
when
who
I say
decides who he
no,
wants.
yes, but the president is not supposed to appoint a partisan stooge to become IGP. There are positions that partisans can occupy. One of them is not the IGP's office. He is a professional police officer. You see, he is supposed to conduct his affairs in a manner that meets certain standards. And when I say I disagree with Dambuchi, the reason is that the IGP is the one who supervises the security arrangements for elections. You see, even when they have military support, I'm sure you are aware that the military must operate under the command of the Ghana Police Service or whichever officer is in charge.
That's right.
So if the man is supervising the deployments, is supervising the operational arrangements in terms of security for an election, and he is aligned, what sort of arrangements will he make? What confidence will he inspire in all the parties that are contesting, apart from the ruling party?
What?
So it is absolutely...
The police will make sure at a place where, for example, a party has overwhelming numbers, they will ensure that the vote is suppressed there.
Look,
so that people don't come out.
Samson, you have covered elections extensively. If there are thugs who come to a police station to misconduct themselves, and the police is minded to snuff out their danger, if you have a professional IGP, they will do so. If you have an IGP who is partisan, first of all, he may even be privy to the plot to use these thugs, and so will turn a blind eye. The IGP can be used to frustrate opposing parties. Indeed, I recall an incident as far back as 2006 at Ofinso, where Nia Masana Mwale, at the time I think you were still with Joy FM, you recall that incident. At the start of the election, Nia Masana Mwale, merely because he inquired to know about some process, was removed by the police from the polling station. So we were left unprotected in terms of our interests as a party in that polling station for several hours. And that is what a biased police outfit can do to you.
In 2006 that you mentioned, there was a by-election in Asawase.
Yes.
I blew the whistle on the foreign ballot boxes that were stuffed in a pickup truck.
Exactly.
The police impounded it.
Yeah, so that...
Even though I was beaten by the soldiers.
Well, that is unfortunate. But at the time, that would have been the work of a police outfit that was professional. They were simply committed to maintain law and order. But there have been instances where the police has turned a blind eye. I have maintained that, you see, the Iowa West Wagon incident was not acceptable, not just because it was done by MPP thugs, but it was not acceptable because they basically had no challenge from the police establishment. And I'm saying that there's nobody who can convince me that these ragtag of bandits will be a match for the police service if they were determined to confront them. Therefore, so that is what you will have.
Therefore, this leaked tape, what should happen to it?
So, number one, it must be looked into. There is talk about finding out its authenticity. I don't think that anybody who listens to that tape will be in doubt about its authenticity, given how clear it is and what is being said and all that. So, the officer involved must be identified. When he is identified, I think he has done enough to compromise his office. So his stay is no longer tenable. He must leave the police service. If he wants to go and become an MPP propagandist, he is free to do so. But that is after he has left the police service. Number three.
That officer is not alone.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Don't you hear other officers?
It does not matter. Anybody
have come to pave the way for him.
What I'm saying is that anybody
and tell all the bad things that this IGP represents. And
you see, I'm saying that as for the bits about the internal office politics, I can live with. It is not unusual that people will want to replace you just for your position. Okay. That I can live with. If they want an IGP removed, that is a separate issue from the reasons. It is the political reasons that they espouse that worry me. Because I don't think that anybody can make himself IGP. So to become IGP, you have to meet certain requirements.
Okay, so you say he must be removed and then...
He must be removed. Anybody also involved in any form or shape in terms of plotting anything sinister about the 2024 election. Because indeed, you hear him also say that there are ways and means in elections. Which means, in fact, it validates the point I'm making. That anybody occupying such a position, because he is partisan, can compromise that position to favor one party.
Okay.
And also we must instill further confidence in the public by carrying out reforms in terms of the way that these appointments are made. And that is where ACP Agozo's point comes in. You see, we must reform the way we do things. And perhaps we need to have a larger conversation about how independent or quasi-independent bodies or bodies that are supposed to operate independent of the executive or other arms of government, first of all, get their leadership and how they conduct themselves over the years. And it is a conversation that has been going on, but nobody appears to be paying attention. Indeed, as for President Mahama, and I can speak for him, he has made it clear. I'm sure you heard him when he launched his campaign in Ho for the flybyship slot of the NDC, that he would like to see far-reaching reforms in the way that public institutions carry out their activities. And I'm sure even the appointment of leaders is one of the things that will come under scrutiny when he indeed gets elected as president of this country. But nobody can swat aside the issues.
Let's hear from Richard. Let's hear from Richard too. And Richard, what do you say? Is it not important? And I remember very quickly how the former NDC chairman, Ufoso Ampofo, was caught on a tape, another situation, leaked tape, in certain conversations, and on the basis of that, he is in court and is being tried. What do you say?
Well, Samson, thank you very much. Just grant me 1 second to share again my condolences with one of my communicators who passed away in Asenov, Francis Nketia. Yesterday,
is it the same person you and I spoke about when you were there? We spoke to you on phone.
Yes. Yesterday was his 1 week celebration. I was supposed to be there, but I was prevented by a certain pressing matter to do with the party, and I wasn't able to go there. So my condolences to the family and wife and children. Something listening to Felix, and then maybe the other NDC spokespersons on this matter, I am tempted to believe that somehow the NDC knows how to use an IGP to influence an election outcome. And if they do, they should tell us how they did it in the past so all of us can learn. But as far as I am concerned, in observing this Fourth Republic, there is no evidence whatsoever that a police IGP can singularly determine an electoral outcome for any political party for that matter. So we in the MPP, we don't have any evidence of that. We don't know how to do it, but somehow they know how to do it. They must tell Ghanaians how to use an IGP to influence election in their favor. So we all know how not to do it. So the thing about this tape, something is that it's concerning. Now, I have made a deliberate effort not to listen to it because for me, I see it to be a possibility of many things. While I agree principally for the parliamentary inquiry committee that is put together to look into it, they must do their job diligently. We're all interested in the matter. But it worries me to say that before that committee's work or any committee dealing with this tape comes up with any report, there seemed to be a conclusive position from the NDC, collectively focused to come to the place to say that this is MPP. I don't get it. That was why I raised the concern that if they know how to use an IGP to rig an election, they should show us, because we don't know, and there's no evidence in this Fourth Republic, and I'll show you some evidence.
But the question about politicizing the matter, you are hearing people of politicians, so to speak,
right,
and you are hearing them say, this is for the purpose in federance of MPPs, agenda, break the eighth. So who is politicizing it?
But I'm referring to the NDC's conclusive position. Now, even let me just deal with what you just raised. So, assuming that these people are political operatives, you're looking at capacity, right? Who are these people? Do they have capacity in relation to the New Patriotic Party to take those decisions or to be making those negotiations on behalf of the party? And I tell you, it's zero.
Okay.
Right? You didn't hear my general secretary on that. You didn't hear my national chairman on that. You didn't hear any of our party executives on that. You didn't hear me.
A former regional
We're talking about executives.
Okay. Right.
Right? You didn't hear me on that tape. So what is the capacity of people who are sitting somewhere whose the authenticity of that tape has not been verified yet? So the conclusive position of the NDC is worrying. And I say that they should tread cautiously. Now, Felix was very emphatic about Honorable Damboche's position and say, he should know better. So again, is it something they know to do with an IGP and election that they are not telling us? Because if you read something that is very tricky to side or agree with the former OSP, But he did some analysis and suggested that you couldn't use an IGP to rig an election even if you wanted to, suggesting that, assuming Felix was saying about if he's in charge of the operational issues of the election, deploying people to go here, district, regional commanders, and all of that, that he has the capacity to do that. And he went to say that even if you did that, there are people in the service who, as a matter of conscience, would probably go tell on you that this is what you're doing. So unless the NDC has a way, there's a foolproof way they do it, they should tell us. But as a matter of fact, that this tape should be investigated. The concerns, the matters raised there are concerning. But I know for sure that in relation to the appointment of the IGP, the president has the capacity, is vested in the president, the power to appoint is vested with the president. So if the president appoints, he has, if he needs, there's a reason he wants to disappoint, subject to performance or lack of performance, he could do that. And so it doesn't lie in anybody's conspiracy for the president to act. That power rests with him. And he has not indicated anything in that direction. And that's why I would disagree with Felix when he is disagreeing with the Interior Minister to suggest that, the Interior Minister appears somewhat flippant in making his comment to say that the IGP stays put. I don't understand how he comes to that conclusion. The Interior Minister is a sector minister under whom the IGP works. So if he speaks in the manner he spoke to say that the IGP has no question to answer, to that extent, he stays at post. The minister represents the president in that ministry, and so has spoken and therefore spoke the mind of the president. So I'm not sure how Phyllis and the NDC think they can speak. He's not the only person who has made that point. I've heard in Parliament, I think Honorable James Agalga and the rest who've commented on this matter in Parliament talk about how is it that the minister should investigate a thing when he sees there's nothing to be investigated. What is there to investigate? Samson, if people just sit somewhere to make commentary that has no effect in terms of action, has no effect on you who is supposed to run this program. So we should investigate them, we should arrest them just because they say something, not in relation to you, something they said that you cannot be influenced by. So certainly we should investigate. Now the idea, just a minute. So then what it is that I understand the Interior Minister to say is that then you end up investigating anything anybody brings up. But he has a principal job of ensuring the security of the state.
Right.
You don't want to put him on the wild goose chase just because somebody records something and put it out.
In 2012, in April, I'm reading this story about political parties reject MPP's call for dismissal of IGP. And your General Secretary then, Kojo Owusu-Efriye, alias Sir John, had raised issues about Paul Terry-Akwe and suggested that he was biased in the discharge of his duties. And so some of the parties also responded, including Johnson Esedo and Ketia. But interesting, you had flag bearer of the United Front Party, Akwesi Adai, saying, quote, he said that the IGP had taken sides arresting only MPP supporters. He said similar things occurred during the MPP regime. He alleged that in Ashanti region, the police helped MPP supporters to vote more than 20 times while the then IGP, Patrick Quarting, turned a blind eye. Akwesi Adai advised the MPP to desist from calling for IGP Paul Terry-Akwe's dismissal since it also had national security implications. Then everybody else was saying, so I read this for you for purposes of the question you ask Felix, that if the NDC knows how IGPs are used in elections, then they should tell you. This is not today.
Well, how does that?
The NPP has similar feelings about a certain IGP.
Well, I'm just saying that. Well, if you have feelings about an IGP's conduct, you are free to say it. It's part of free speech. If you have concerns about the discharge of a person's job, should you not say it? But But it's different from concluding that that person's job is leading to somebody winning election, because there is no direct correlation there.
Okay.
You understand? Because in 2000, when we won the election, the IGP in charge, that's Peter Namfuri, was appointed by the NDC. How come you won? Was he not interested in engineering the election in their favor? Clearly, there's no evidence there. In 2008, when the NDC won the election, the same IGP, Patrick Kwarteng, whose name you just mentioned, was the IGP appointed by President Kufuor. Why did he not engineer the election in our favor? In 2016, John Kudalo, the IGP, NDC appointed. Why did not the election not go away? I'm just saying that.
I just pointed to Asawasi.
Yeah.
And during that by-elections, the NPP was in office.
Right.
And there was foreign ballot boxes, ballot boxes stuffed with, ballot papers in a pickup truck. And the suspicion was that it was engineered by the NPP. I raised the alarm. The police commander in Ashanti region ensured that that vehicle was impounded.
That's it. At the very heart of the NPP's stronghold. And I'm saying that I don't have a problem. And I think that Honorable Damboche said that, and I took issue with it because I think that Felix was not being fair. I don't think we in the NPP have a problem with that audio tape. It's out there, had to be investigated. We're committed to that. But the conclusive nature of the NDC's communication is troubling, that they have come to a certain position to say that it's NPP. That makes me worry. One, is it a setup situation that somebody is putting this thing out there to preempt a certain conversation? Who is possibly the person who must have done that? It's interesting for us to know through this investigation. But nobody at present can come to any conclusion on the matter of this tape and the rationale behind it. And so therefore begin to make pronouncements that lead to convicting a certain
So you're saying that even though you have a former regional chairman of the party on this tape, of the NPP on this tape, you have a confessed party person in the police, senior officer, who was allegedly also seeking to contest elections as an MP or whatever, however, we don't know, also on this tape. Your point is that this is not an officially sanctioned thing, and that even in any case, these people don't have what it takes in the party for the NDC to elevate the seriousness of the tape the way they are doing. That's what you're saying.
I didn't say that, but some said, if you are able to tell me that the person on the tape is Mr. A, who confesses that is MPP, then Mr. B, who is the police officer, Mr. C, who is that, then maybe you can engage me in that conversation. And that's exactly. Well, I don't know, but then it means that the investigation Parliament is calling for is pointless. Then we should just go ahead and name the people and then be done with it, right? But if we have to be methodical, if we have to do this the right way it ought to be done, I think that we should wait and go through the process.
Okay.
But until that, anybody who is being conclusive in saying A or B, I think, Samson, you have a responsibility to tell them to tread cautiously, because really what it is that you are preempting a certain outcome. Okay. And I think that is dangerous to be able to do that. All of us, I personally am interested in finding out, because I can tell you that the New Patriotic Party, we've never benefited, we've never orchestrated to win election with an IGP one way or the other. And I don't know what they know how to do with an IGP.
The president even said that the Electoral Commission cannot do anything about elections. Some disagree. Kofi, what do you make of this tape, and how seriously should it be taken? Well, Richard knows that I will not mention the names of the people that I say I know. I can tell without any doubt that these are the people speaking because I know their voices. He knows the reason I won't do that, but he's pushing me and knowing that I won't do it. But if Parliament investigated, Parliament will name them, and I can use Parliament's document and sit on this show and say Mr. A and B, and I know that I'll be free. Nobody can take me to court for anything. Yes, Kofi?
Yes, so that's why investigations are necessary. And I would say it is proper that we go into this. It, however, does not mean that Parliament should investigate every leak tape. Otherwise, we will start a cottage industry in leak tapes. and it will send everybody on a wild goose chase. However, between the banter and the jostling of the two parties, I am more interested in looking at the broader picture as it reflects on the nation. And I think we need to take, some time to appreciate that. Look, we have a situation today where the appointee of the president, who at the time we heard noises about he having, sympathies for one side, is today the one being protected by the other side. Those things are important in a nation. So we need to appreciate that the work that IGP Dampare has done has come to the point where the NDC today feels a certain need to more or less protect him. It's a happy problem. We need to celebrate those little wins. Okay. Now, that being said, anybody who says that security is not fundamental to election integrity is not being, honest with the truth. Anybody who knows about election knows that one of the ways to rig an election or to, compromise it is to attack the security of the election. If people are not confident that they will be secure going to cast their vote, half of the electorate will not go to vote. It will take only die-hard supporters going to vote. And if we know, therefore, that security is consequential in having a free and fair election, then we have to ask ourselves, who gives confidence today in Ghana when it comes to general security? Let us not take for granted that the last few or one or two by-elections we've had almost, no instance of, insecurity like we had in the Ayawaso situation, that kind of thing. And that had a lot to do with the Ghana police. And the Ghana police is a very fine police service. In my work, like you, we deal with a lot of police persons, and I have to say a few of them are a disgrace to the service, but the vast majority do a very good job. And especially recently, the leadership of the Ghana police has enhanced the stature of the police, and we can see the difference. Nobody can tell me that the leadership and the person of IGP Dampare has no effect. So you have this cascading arrangement where the presence of IGP Dampare creates a lot of confidence. We shouldn't take that for granted. And it's not because I want to worship Dampare, all right? We know how it plays on the field. And that creates security, and that affects election. And we have seen it in the recent past compared to the other times. So when you have a situation like this, and then the other party, which normally will be worried about he being compromised, is the one that is speaking for him, I think that is something that on a national level, beyond the politics, we must celebrate and then seek more of such. On to the specific issue of the partisanship. The tape is important because of the kinds of sentiments being expressed. And I agree with Felix that the partisanship on that tape is worrying. And like you're saying, we wouldn't name the people there, but the fact that these are police officers, at least on the face of it, should give us some worry. And that is why I say we should investigate this one, because I think it is proper to do so and put the people where, according to law, they properly should be put. Because if there is truth to what we are hearing, not doing anything is terrible. We need to send a message that these attitudes will not be countenanced. Now, if it turns out after the investigation that this was a joke, we treat it as a joke, but it also sends the message that people who have these sentiments will not be tolerated. All right? So, in short, look, it is important to investigate it, but we shouldn't make a rule that every leak will be investigated. We should not pretend this is nothing. It is something. But we should also have this loftier, appreciation of the issues of security, and appreciate that if IGP Dampare can sort of create this kind of mindset that he can shepherd a secure election, we all should work with him to make sure that he is able to do that with the kind of police service that we have. And I believe Ghana is the better for it. So I'm looking forward to the investigation.
You expect this committee by Parliament to do something very substantive?
That's another matter. In fact, yesterday I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who said his problem is with Parliament and the parliamentary committee. But I was telling the person, look, you have to have a certain amount of trust in the institutions that we have, even if we are going to work on them over time. Parliament is what we have. I don't see a better institution that will do some sort of investigation. My worry will be if nothing is done. But there is a larger problem. And the larger problem is that Ronald Reagan once said that weakness is a threat to peace. When people see that there is the opportunity to do some of these things, then they get the confidence to do so. Why would anybody sit and say, let the president, or he wants the president to move this person so that somebody else will do it? Because it can be done. And my worry is that we have an IGP office which is not independent, and indeed the president can just sit down one day and move him. That weakness is a threat to the stability of that institution. And I think that is the loftier issue that Parliament should be seeking to plug. We have independent institutions in this country, and they were made constitutionally independent because we believe their work was such that they needed to have that protection in the Constitution so that they can execute their duties objectively without fear of victimization. If we have the Auditor General to be independent, we have NCCE independent, the EC is independent, SHRAG is independent. Note that the office of the IGP is the only office in the country which by law can discharge lethal force and violence against citizens on order. They can actually shoot you with arm them. And they have to deploy this force against citizens and other powerful persons in the interest of stability and security. But today, our IGP is an extension of the executive. Meanwhile, the executive is the powerful institution sometimes which is prone to do things which require that people or institutions like the IGP will come to the defense of citizens against. What I'm trying to say is that it is anomalous that you have a situation where the IGP is essentially an extension of the executive, can be appointed or removed by the executive. And basically, if you read the law, what he does is determined more or less by the executive. It is time for us to amend that section so that his removal cannot be that easy. Then that weakness cannot be exploited for us to hear it in the tape that somebody wants him removed so that he can be put there and then he can use that.
So finally, I was asking about the Parliament and what it could do. First of all, they will have to establish the authenticity, the voices in the tape, correct?
Yes, but that is not really Parliament's job. Parliament has to have a committee to do that, but the doing of that is a forensic duty.
Exactly.
And ultimately, we'll go
exactly. So that's the first hurdle they must cross. Without that, they cannot proceed, can they?
No.
Okay. So
they have to identify the people.
So they suspect that it is a certain Mensah who has been named in this tape. It is a certain Bugri who has been named in this tape, and they call them, and they say it is not me. What can they do?
They have to forensically establish those facts, and then you are going to a criminal investigation, that kind of thing. Really, that is why I am saying
Parliament doesn't do this forensics. You have been in court. You realize that even the police lab, they have difficulties. Sometimes we are told in this country, voices must be taken somewhere to South Africa to be able to know certain things. So how do you see the end of this investigation?
So this investigation is really not about what it turns out. It's about establishing the principle. Parliament should, as a matter of principle, investigate it because it is important. The outcome of the investigation will depend on what you and I are discussing. It won't stand up in court if they don't do the proper forensics. So it's possible it will go nowhere. But then the principle will have been established. But then that is why Parliament should move to the next level of making sure we don't have this kind of weakness which encourage people like this. Because indeed, it is possible that people with political goals seek to make these changes to affect elections.
Thank you very much. I can give you only a minute so that we take a break. This show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go, and Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Duroplast, producers of quality PVC and HDPE pipes, and water tank. Where Duroplast goes, water flows. DBS Industries, roofing Papa Fie. My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Cherry Tree Properties. We develop spaces as though we were going to occupy them ourselves. Syntex Tanks. It's strong, it's tough, and Flamingo Paints, simply superior. I'll give you a minute each, then we take a break.
Something, you know, the pretense and the feigning of ignorance by Richard is staggering. The notion that an IGP cannot influence at least the way that security impacts an election is shocking. And Kofi hit the nail right on the head. Look, what we hear on this tape is a senior police officer saying that the IGP should be removed because he will stand in the way of what needs to be done to get the MPP re-elected in 2024. And Richard says that that cannot happen, that we in the NDC should furnish him with how an IGP can be used. I gave you a number of examples.
He tells you that he's not in conversation with executives of the party.
Again, Samson, who says that it is only elected officials who can influence what happens in government? The most powerful people often are people who do not hold positions in government. And that's not why. Who can dispute the power and influence that Gabriel Shedaku holds, for instance, in this government? Does he occupy an official position? Who can deny that? Yes, but I'm saying that the claim that because Bugri Nabu, who has been named as the other person on the party, is not an elected official or does not hold any specific position in this party as of now, so cannot influence what happens or cannot have the ear of the president or cannot know what the pulse is in government, is shocking.
You are telling me if this has happened whilst the NDC was in government, you not have told me what Rick
Absolutely. Look, I am one of those people. And indeed, during our last manifesto writing session, I actually pushed for proposals on the setting up of an independent commission to appoint the IGP. I believe earnestly in the separation of that institution from the long reach of the executive.
Okay.
Because that is the only way that we can insulate ourselves from influence.
Yes.
But again, finally, I beg you. You see, we in the NDC are not defending Dampari. As I sit here, I'm indifferent about who is IGP. Insofar as the person meets professional standards and conducts himself or herself in a manner that is acceptable. But the point is that what has happened on this tape cannot be ignored. And that what they are plotting essentially is rigging the election for the MPP using security. So when Richard says that he does not know how an IGP or a police force or a security outfit can influence elections, it shows certain ignorance, which I'm really surprised about.
Yes. Well,
if it is not deliberate or contrived.
I appreciate that ignorance, and I want education. He can teach me if they have the knowledge how an IGP can influence election. Look, you can't believe Felix, right? You can't believe him. They just came out of opposition. So 2016 they left, or 2017 they left power. During that period, why didn't Felix advocate for this kind of appointment of IGP that he's telling us it was only during manifesto writing that it came to his mind? So for all that period, he didn't think about it. See, the NDC is jumping ahead of itself, and that makes me suspicious to say that something. This tape, I don't know, he's mentioned certain names there, whatever he knows, I don't know. But is it possible that somebody is setting us all up? Because in all honesty, if Phyllis believes in his heart of hearts that an IGP can influence elections, I'm wondering why in 2000 that didn't happen. I'm wondering why. Okay, wait. I'm wondering why. Wait. I'm wondering why in 2016 that didn't happen. Okay. And I'm wondering why in 2008 that didn't happen. The point, please, just hold on. So I am letting you understand. So I've given you instances, two different parties.
Right, you have.
And if the capacity exists and the appetite existed, because in those two elections, both parties wanted to win. Is that not the case?
That's right.
In 2000, the NDC wanted to win. So if they knew how to use an IGP, they would have used it. Okay. In 2008, the MPP wanted to win. So if there was a way to use an IGP to win, you would have used it. So this occasion is no different from the series of elections that we've had already.
Thank you, Richard Ahiagwa, Director of Communications, the New Patriotic Party, Felix Kwachio Fosu, a special aide former President John Mahama, and the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Abura Asebu Kwaman Kese. Kofi Bento is lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa, will return to go to the NPP to check how things are shaping up as they get ready to prune the 11 to 5 and subsequently and later to 1 as the presidential flag bearer and candidates for the 2024 elections. People have been saying a number of things. Those who are in the party and contesting have been making very interesting comments. Kwejo Eje Ejapong and also Alan Chamanting, as well as former Minister. I'll be right back.
For decades, we have helped businesses connect with their trade partners all over the globe. From Ghana to Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo, Senegal, China, Morocco, France, Netherlands, and many other countries. We have made it possible to bring Ghana to the world. We have brought small and medium businesses closer to their customers across the regions in Ghana with our SME support facilities. We have brought relief and smiles to the faces of families with our employee personal loans. With our cutting-edge technology and digital support, we take the burden of complex thinking off you, making life simple. That is who we are, as close as a partner. Bank of Africa. We are indeed the African bank with the global reach.
My name is Tina. I am a person living with HIV. I got to know my HIV status after I gave birth and lost the child because of HIV. In those days, prevention of mother-to-child transmission services had low patronage due to fear and stigmatization. Today, many HIV-positive women have delivered negative children. I follow the guidelines and take my HIV medicine called ARVs every day, as prescribed by my doctor. This makes me strong and healthy and also prevent me from passing HIV on to any future child. Please, avail yourself of PMTCT services when pregnant. It is the only way to ensure you do not pass the HIV onto your baby during birth or pregnancy. If you have tested for HIV recently and it was negative, test again when pregnant. If you have tested positive, go to the hospital after birth as directed by your healthcare provider. Your baby will be given medicine immediately and tested to ensure baby and mother are well. Let us work together to have an HIV-free generation.
Our children must be free to shine.
Caprenu, eya, and nothing me too for say a baby or Padia, one sound cotton in Predu. Na me count SCP amount. SCP, ewa, Tema Shire. I want a factory Cassian, esi, and yen upper, pavement blocks, and Casancasa, and a dear this in them Biarano, Oko Shire, SCP, Ebemobi. Some person who sue dying, now put on concrete. And after I could cement, I could probably walk upon ya. Offer SCP. The concrete is missing the with quality. Cement warm on the good camera amount. So what am I? A fiena, dodoa, a flower, bong, and in Patam Nara. Your office. I was Printers Road, Yanni Papaya restaurant in the Division.
For SCP was 0501 672 608. And our toll free number 0800 626 262.
Pascal's showing his boss the efficient new technology they've installed. She is pleased, but now she's asking, why is that still there? Pascal explains that the wells can store many, many messages. The boss is not so pleased anymore. If you haven't upgraded your contact center yet, it's time to get business done better with MTN Business.
The recommendation by the vetting committee is not binding on national. National council is the second highest body of the party. Maybe they may be privy to certain information that the vetting committee didn't have, and nothing stopped the national council from varying the recommendation of the vetting committee. Well, barring any unforeseen circumstances or activities happening, I'm very sure the number will be more than 5. So certainly there will be a special delegate college. For that one, I'm very certain. The process has not ended. We have a bigger task ahead of us in 2024 to become the first political party to have won election on 3 consecutive occasions, which means that their actions and inactions, their utterances should be measured to reflect the unity that we need in the party to also make the reconciliation after the election very easy for all of us.
Right, so you've been listening to the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Kodua, on what to expect. But the issue just gone by. Here are some of your views that you share. Adreno Greatness says, I personally think that this isn't good for our country. If we really want to make progress as a country, we must allow the IGP to work regardless of the political party that appointed them. Going forward, I think our institutions must be independent. Tano Johnson says, on a most serious note, most of our current leaders keep on disappointing. I got so sad after listening to the leaked tape. We need to be more serious as a country. Mike Tachi says, anyone with the smallest imagination in viewing the topics discussed in the leaked audio as nothing is undeserving to be a Ghanaian. We are talking about plans to distort an election and take away the people's will. This can't be swept under the carpet. Let's get serious in Ghana. Kakra 19 says, so if the Mpari stays and MPP wins, what does it mean? Elizabeth Var says, that party stooge of a police, of a police commissioner must be removed ASAP. That's what you mean, the person on the tape. Well, people have made all sorts of permutations, actually connected the person to Ayawa, so West Wogon and all sorts of stuff. Oklu Joseph, what is Ayagba saying or trying to convey? Isn't he aware that there are individuals with significant power and influence who do not hold national positions within a political party? Ayuba Oceani says, nobody ever thought of how an IGP can influence elections until this tape was leaked. An insecure election will record low turnout, you meant. The tape must be handled with all seriousness. And Kimati Adea says, so Mr. Anyagba says he's not bothered about people planning to rig an election. Let's be honest. The final one is from Al-Haj Suleiman. He says, I think the tape at best portrays a bootlicking gossip who wants to gain favor from a political heavyweight. Let's not kid ourselves. It is nearly impossible for an IGP to rig an election. Nonetheless, the mindset of the bootlicking gossip to subvert the will of the people, however impossible, and his partisanship is a source of worry, and thus the police service must purge itself of that person. Whatever he was saying is far more serious than Oliver Baka-Vomawor's Facebook post. Okay, interesting. And somebody was also sharing an interesting thing about Nigeria. They say, what is the role of the transport or roads minister in elections? Go to Nigeria, you'll find out why. The roads, they dug into the middle of roads, saying that they are going to do construction work on the day of elections. So the people couldn't drive to go get. All right, anyway, yeah, so it's been interesting. It's been an interesting period, Mr. Hyagba.
Yes, sir.
In your party, the 10 people who have been passed, and we have just shown their faces on our screens. You see their faces come up on your screens again. All 10 get the all clear to stand. And you'll be going for your super delegate election to prune them down to 5. People still continue to talk about, an even, not level playing field. They refer to what happened in Asin North, how Alan Shermanting was not dealt with fairly at all. I've seen that footage while he's on the stage speaking, and I'm told every other person who came on the stage came through the back, but when he got to Bamia's turn, he was taken through the front when the man was speaking and completely interrupted his speaking. His speech, people are not too comfortable what is going on. But tell us, what's going to happen from here?
Well, thank you very much, Samson. I think I'll join our national organizer in apologizing to Honorable Alan Shermanting for that event. To be honest with you, on the day I was at the rally grounds, but then I was moving around. I didn't see the event. And subsequently upon the report, I went to look at it. I think that...
very embarrassing.
Yes. But you see, going into that rally, there were conversations. I don't know if I have his permission to say this. Just yesterday, he referenced that to me again. There was a discussion about how to design the stage, learning from Kumau, because the stage there was smaller. And so there was conversation at our meetings at some point, long before the rally, before I even went to Kumau, to say, I went to Asin North, to say that why don't we have a situation where the people will sit will be separate from where you go to speak. So yesterday, in a certain conversation that dovetailed into this, the individual, I don't know if you would agree for me to mention his name, but the Minister of Information really was, he was part of that meeting, and he was insisting that we probably should do that.
Idea,
yes. But then, so when this thing turned out, yesterday the conversation said, well, if that had been done, we wouldn't have seen what happened yesterday. So I think it's a critical lesson that we'll take away going forward. Right. But I think that the national organizer who was in charge...
People have been touting their credentials as to who has been longest in the party, who has sacrificed for the party. And now there is a debate as to who has actually made the most sacrifice.
But I think that is to be expected because really what it is that people try and establish themselves as deserving and credentials such as being part of the party, having legitimacy and a place in the party to represent. I think that is part of the conversation. The only thing is, perhaps, if you ask me, is how we text it, how we say it so that it doesn't mean that we're trying to denigrate one or the other, but to say that, yes, this is my claim to be the flag bearer of the party, that I'm invested, and if you give me this privileged position, I'll protect it, I won't abuse it, because as a party member, I'm concerned. Who do we give that to? In fact, when I came to contest for General Secretary, that was a concern. Where is he from? We don't know him. And we're going to hand our party to him. So it's a legitimate concern for people to establish their place in the party. So that's fine. And the idea that there is...
Isn't it interesting that even Freddie Blake could become your chairman?
Yeah, I mean...
Those of you who are in the party, you get questioned. Where are you coming from?
Well, yeah, so that's a different conversation that is in the past. But,
anyway.
But I'm saying that to the extent that they are engaged in a conversation and people are calling for level playing field and the rest of it, it's for good measure. It's not as if that the playing field is uneven, but it is good in the conversation to elect the flag bearer, a very critical position like that, for people to feel that the process is fair, that everything is done in a way that there is balance. And the outcome of the vetting committee's report, their recommendation to National Council for Affirmation, tells you that so far the processes are fair. And so we hope that it will lead on from here. I think National Council sits down on the 20th to go through the recommendation from the vetting committee, which the General Secretary will present, and will decide to affirm or not affirm.
Is it possible anything can change?
Well, it's up to National Council, and you know the appeals, the petition, the open petition, I think it closed yesterday, and the appeals committee is supposed to sit between now and the 18th to be able to look at that. If anything comes up, I think that window is shut now. But National Council will look at it, and then from there, that the final issue will be drawn. But mind you, there's a code of conduct committee that is put in place, and so the candidates themselves, once they are affirmed by National Council, have a responsibility to adhere to a certain standard rules that they will have undertaken to adhere to. And so, as and when the campaign goes on, if there are complaints and a violation of the accepted code of conduct, I think that the code of conduct committee will look at it. But I anticipate that everything would go along as we anticipate the candidates themselves. This is a high-profile election, and they would conduct themselves as deserving of very established members of the party, whose very interest is to preserve the tradition and advance our interest in 2024.
Yeah, so tell me, we don't have the affirmation or otherwise from the national, is it the NEC? Is it a national?
Yes, National.
We don't have that yet.
No, that will be done on the 20th when the National Council and National Executive Committee sits.
Right. And yet you have July 12 to 14 fixed for submission of petitions to the National Presidential Appeals Committee, which will sit on July 17 and July 18 to address any petition. What is the expectation? What are you expecting? I thought that, the committee will now come out and say, we have affirmed everybody, or this person has suffered, and so on. Then that's how petitions will come.
Right. So the process leading to the National Council is a termination, right? So from now till the 20th, the processes that are in place up until the 18th when the appeals committee sits, they can look at any petition. But my understanding is that there hasn't been any petition received as at the
So
time.
what would these petitions be about?
Well, I mean, if I have reason to believe that candidate A or aspirant A is not qualified because I know he's a member of the NDC.
Oh, I get
he's
it.
not a party
Okay.
person and all of that.
Okay.
So then I can bring that petition for him to be disqualified.
So on the basis of that,
yes,
it will feed into the work that they will have to do. To decide to affirm or not to affirm.
Not to affirm.
Okay.
And so at that point, they would de-recommend him to National Council, and he has the right or the opportunity to come before that committee between the time period of the 18th, ending on the 18th, to explain himself why he thinks that what the petition is saying is false.
Okay.
And so when that is done, I think the National Council then proceeds. But what I want to emphasize something is that the Code of Conduct Committee, very unique setup, that consists of the General Secretary, the Honorable Hackman Owusu-Ajima, who is the chair of the Council of Elders, and Mr. Frank Davis, who is also chair of the Constitutional Legal Committee. They are constantly engaged in observing conduct that the candidates themselves have undertaken to adhere to. And so any breaches in that regard, I think will draw their attention, and I think that appropriate sanctions will be applied.
All right. So Felix, the qualified aspirants will be published by July 21, and then there'll be balloting for positions on the ballot paper on Monday, July 24. Then the first notice of poll will be for Tuesday, July 25. If the qualified candidates exceed 5, then a special electoral college will be held on August 26 to prune the number to 5. Fresh balloting of the final 5 qualified candidates will take place on August 28, with the final notice of poll fixed for August 31, and the National Congress to elect the flag bearer on the 4th of November 2023, with a runoff, if any, for 11th of November.
I think it's a needlessly convoluted process. To be honest with you, I am not entirely sold on this superdelegates business. I think it was a knee-jerk response to the criticism that they faced in 2007 when 17 people showed up. I think they misapprehended the criticism at the time. The criticism had to do more with the flamboyance and opulence displayed at the time, and not necessarily the numbers. Because really, apart from perhaps creating opportunity for an unwieldy ballot paper, which may confuse less enlightened voters, I don't see what real problem that puts. What are you going to do, for instance, if in the parliamentary primaries 17 people show up to contest one particular constituency? Are you going to have a super delegates conference on that one too? For me, I think it restricts the frontiers.
The amendment is specific to the president.
Yeah, but so I'm asking that if you face the same problem in the parliamentary primaries, are you also going to organize?
Very unlikely.
So why then do you have to tamper with something that is not broken? What people were concerned about was the overture of opulence. That is what you ought to have dealt with. You didn't need to tamper with the president, because what it does for me is to restrict the frontiers of democracy. You see, we are talking about how many super delegates? About 900.
About 900, yeah.
You see, these are creme de la creme. Anybody who is everybody in the MPP. And indeed, Boachi Jaku has complained that, you see, the tendency is for that process to be skewed towards the establishment candidate. Because, see, the people in that bracket are people who would naturally gravitate towards the center of power in order to benefit from whatever largesse that they think that there is. And so the tendency to act in ways
they are not only serving officers.
I agree, but they are still prominent members. Yes, but they are still prominent members of the party, and they figure prominently in the affairs of the government, the party, and what have you. And they do not want to be seen to be upsetting the status quo or offending the establishment which is backing a particular candidate. So in terms of the fairness and the openness and transparency of the process, there's a bit of a difficulty. I don't think that they should have done that. They should still have allowed the broad masses of delegates to decide who qualifies. If you have to organize 2 rounds of voting, then I think that everybody who is eligible to vote within your party ought to have had a say in how the numbers are pruned out.
Well, that would be the final election, right? If everybody is...
No, it's two rounds of elections.
That's what he's saying.
Yes, right. So then have one process.
But you can't have that.
No, but if you are interested in pruning down the numbers, then make it as broad-based as the actual election itself. That's my argument. Otherwise, it restricts the frontiers of democracy. That said, though, there have been some first of all, I think they've actually failed to capture the imagination of the country this time round. In 2007 and in a previous contest, I think they managed to capture. But again, they are operating under the pall of a very, very gloomy performance in government.
Anyway,
and indeed,
so let's go to Kofi Bento.
Final point.
Some of the flag bearer hopefuls are already saying a few.
Exactly, and indeed, I was going to comment on
from Nigeria, Japan.
Yes, you see, some have said
saying that. I mean, those who have been in government and brought us where we
some have said that
are not qualified.
Some have said that it is not a message that delegates want to hear. But you see, there's also room for moral courage in politics. There's a chunk of MPP supporters who fear that if there's no change in direction, the disappointment that is felt, that rings around this country, will lead to their defeat. So if a candidate is tapping into that base, he perhaps may have a strategy.
Okay,
we have to look at it.
Kofi Bento, let's hear you.
But would you give me a second?
Yeah, I'm coming. Yes, yeah. Hello, Kofi.
Yes, Samson. Our democracy moves on. I'm happy to see that. I mean, we are going through the processes. And again, I like to look at the bigger picture. 30 or so years into the Constitution, we seem to be making the strides. Felix is saying they didn't capture the imagination of the nation. Every nation must strive to the point where its elections become boring and uneventful. So I am happy that we go through this process and nobody really ticks. However, I am praying for the day when all members of a party will be able to be part of the selection of the presidential candidate. And I wish to submit to the parties that the technology exists. You can have a vote by cell phone. That programming can be done. They should each, make it one of their goals so that by 2024, they will create a platform where their members will register with their cell phones. And Ghana is one of the few countries in the world where cell phones can actually be traced to a person. And then on the day, people can actually vote by cell phone so that they can pick their flag bearers. That being said, I'm happy with the process. I think it is NPP's job to make sure that they give us the best candidate. However, everybody must note, there is no perfect choice generally in the world, especially in politics. You are looking at the person who is going to be more or less the worst of all the evils. There are only trade-offs. So when it comes to all the noises that are being made and all those things, I would hope that they will find a way for all these men who have shown themselves as wanting to lead the party to form themselves into a team. They are all formidable.
But you have already said that Bawumia is a better of the lot, right?
So again, I've said, and I don't run away from it, that it's about trade-offs. If you look at people like Honorable Gatti, this is a man who has served the party for years since when? And he's done a good job. Yes, it's a trade-off. There's something to gain, there's something to lose. Of course, I think Samira should be first lady of this country for many reasons. At the end of the day, you have other people too who can, tout whatever, they have.
Okay.
The issue is that there's a process, let them go through it. I'm happy that it's a boring process. I am hoping that next time around, we'll have a situation where every party member participates in this process, and it's so boring that nobody even notices it. So it's our democracy moving forward. I pray that they will all continue to abide by the rules, and we'll have a good election and hopefully the outcome will be something we'll all be happy with.
Thank you, Kofi. I noticed, and some of my viewers also say, I like Kofi's white beard. I also noticed. Yes. Richard, you wanted a minute.
Yeah. So I was just saying that, so the process of, opening it up, I think is fair. That's the incident of democracy. We should do that. But in the present scenario, what we have is what we're working with. So the Electoral College will decide, prune it down, and we'll go further. I think that even in that limited space, the number that is going to vote will still exercise democracy. It's a choice. They have a responsibility to reflect the spirit of the party, that we want this candidate or that candidate. And I believe truly, Samson, honestly, that our party has a spirit, that spirit will always determine the right candidate to come forth to lead our party. And so
J. Japan launched his campaign. He made a brilliant speech laden with a lot of values and the need to do a lot of things right. Kofi Konedo Apreku has been speaking, Alan Shermanting. These people, you hear them say things that have not gone on right. Alan, for example, say if he had been listened to, things will not be the way they are.
He was a prominent member.
People say this is good, that people can be candid, but some of your party people say this will hurt them. Why should it be this way?
Well, Samson, there's one thing I know, that any one of these 10 individuals will be better than the NDC's alternative. And so the conversation we're having is trying to position our party for success in 2024. And we are determined to win the 2024 election. I believe if I was saying what some of the candidates are saying, I wouldn't say it that way. Right. I would say that the New Patriotic Party is the hope of this country. We have done our best until COVID. We're leading this economy in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Our time is up. And if you are looking for the best kaftans, the place to go is Habil's Couture. You can find them at Ajiringano Gate, East Legon. The number to call is 0200 84 1988. 0200 84 1988. Habil's Couture. My guests have been Kofi Bento, lawyer and senior vice president Imani Africa, Felix Kwachio Fosu, special aide to former President John Mahama and NDC parliamentary candidate Abura Asebu Kwaman Kese. Richard Anyagba is director of communications, New Patriotic Party, and I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. Many thanks to my production team led by Sami Odami. Have a good afternoon.
MTN.
Everywhere you go.
Bank of Africa. As strong as a group, as close as a partner.